Now, second objection Jewish people have to believing in Jesus. They say he didn't regather the 12 tribes and restore the kingdom to Israel. Now, let me talk about that for just a moment. I don't have time to get into a lot of detail, but when we think about the regathering of the 12 tribes of Israel and restoring the kingdom to Israel, what does the church teach about this? What do Christians believe and teach about this? Well, most Christians, if you ask them, what do you believe about the restoring of the regathering of the 12 tribes and the restoring of the kingdom of Israel? If you ask most Christians, you'll just kind of get a puzzled look, like, huh? A blank stare. Or some of them might say, well, it's all spiritual now. The New Testament church replaces that Old Testament Israel. There's not going to be any regathering of tribes and restoring of the kingdom to Israel. Israel's done for. It's the church now. Or they might say, well, the 12 tribes are gone except for the tribe of Judah, the Jews, so it's just the Jews that are going to go back to the land of Israel, but those other 10 tribes, they're just gone. For most Christians, I think the question of the regathering of the tribes and the restoration of the kingdom to Israel, for most Christians it's irrelevant and unimportant. But you know what? To the apostles, that was the primary question on their minds after the resurrection. It was the final question they asked Yeshua right before his ascension in Acts chapter 1. Let me read it out of here, verse 6. When they therefore were come together, they asked of him, saying, Lord, wilt thou at this time restore again the kingdom to Israel? And he said unto them, the church is replacing Israel, forget about it. No. He said, it is not for you to know the times or the seasons which the Father hath put in his own hand, but ye shall receive power after that the Holy Ghost is come upon you, and ye shall be witnesses unto me both in Jerusalem and in all Judea and in Samaria, and unto the uttermost part of the earth. And when he had spoken these things while they beheld, he was taken up, and a cloud received him out of their sight. So the very last question before his ascension was, Lord, will you at this time restore the kingdom to Israel? Now notice they didn't say, will you at this time drive the Romans out of Judea and restore the kingdom to Judah? That wasn't their question. Their hopes included the tribe of Judah and the territory of Judea, certainly, because that's part of Israel. But their question concerned not just the Jews, not just the tribe of Judah, but all the tribes of Israel, all the territory of Israel, all the kingdom of Israel, all 12 tribes. See, they understood the importance and the necessity. They knew that one of the jobs of the Messiah, one of the things the Messiah has to do is regather the 12 tribes and restore the kingdom to Israel. They knew that's one of the jobs of the Messiah. They knew Jesus was the Messiah, and they knew he hadn't done that yet. So is that the next thing on the program that you're going to do? And he didn't say, I'm not going to do it. He just said, it's not for you to know the times. But they did understand the importance and necessity. And you know what? Jews today understand that too. This book right here, written by an anti-missionary, he writes in here about that. He's got a couple pages here, the ingathering of the exiles of Israel. He quotes from Deuteronomy 30, Isaiah 11, Isaiah 43, Amos chapter 9, raise up the tabernacle of David which is fallen, which the apostles quote in Acts 15. That has to do with the Gentiles and the tribes coming back through the Gentiles coming to faith in the Messiah. Jeremiah 23, Ezekiel 39. And then he writes this, he says, listen to what this writer says. The 10 tribes of the northern kingdom of Israel, exiled by the Assyrians before the destruction of the first Beit HaMikdash, the temple, and dispersed beyond the river Sambatyon and the mountains of darkness, will also return. So Jewish people who take their faith seriously, they know the 10 tribes have to return. The tribe of Judah has been returning for 100 years or so, but they know the other tribes somehow, wherever they are, whoever they are, they've got to return. He says, this divine promise of the return and restoration of Israel is unconditional. It will occur even if the people should not want to return. And then he quotes here from Ezekiel. And then later on in the book, let me read one other thing. He points out, he says that, because you see, where are the 10 tribes? They got carried away into Assyria. After some time, they intermarried, they assimilated. And where are the descendants of the 10 tribes today? Hosea said they would be numerous like the sand of the sea. Where are they? Well, some of them might even be in this room and not know it. Some of them might be across the street. Some of them might be in France or Italy or Russia or Asia. We don't know, but God knows where the descendants of the 10 tribes are. And the 10 tribes, Peter and Paul quote from Hosea's prophecy, Hosea chapter 1, which I don't have time to get into. telling Gentile Christians that Hosea's prophecy about the tribes being reclaimed is fulfilled through you, through Gentiles coming to faith in Israel's Messiah. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean every Gentile who comes to the Messiah is descended from the tribes, but it means that some of them are, and however many it is, whether it's 99% or less than 1%, as far as God's concerned, it's enough to fulfill the prophecy that that's how the 10 tribes are being regathered. So, see, what we need to understand is that, and to explain to Jewish people if they bring this up about, well, if Jesus was the Messiah, why didn't he regather the 12 tribes? Our response should be that he is the one to do it. And he started doing it when he died on the cross and sent his apostles on the Great Commission to go to all the nations. Because where are the descendants of the 10 tribes? They're among the nations. That's where they are. So the gospel has to go to the nations, and then through that, the 12 tribes will be regathered and restored to Israel. And